Now, Dropbox requires no introduction as a company. And I think what will be interesting to see is where Dropbox is integrated into the enterprise space. And to talk about this are Mark Reich, who is the head of media sales and partnerships for Dropbox Germany, covering all of the Germanic countries, and Cyrus Akrami, who is the head of media and sales for UK and Republic of Ireland for Dropbox there. Now, they've been with the company for a couple of years now. Mark is not new to the startup scene. His previous experience was a startup here in Berlin that dealt with analysis of advertising campaign across social media and other web properties, so there's a bit of a local connection for Mark. Now, Cyrus comes from an entirely different background, but I think he's a lot happier to be on this side of it. He comes from Goldman Sachs, where he was in the investment banking as an analyst. Doing analysis. Anyway, I've talked way too long. Boys, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Nikolai. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending our session. I'll start and give a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So the topic is digital transformation. I hope that's what most of you come here to this conference to hear about. We'll be taking a slightly different angle to the topic, because many of the presentations that you're seeing here today and the solutions that are presented to you are focusing on the output perspective. How are you able to compete in a digital environment as a publisher? How are you able to better relate and connect with your consumers? Now, what we want to talk about is the side behind it. What are the people and the processes behind this digital transformation actually about? And how can Dropbox help publishers, become more competitive, more advanced, and better at leading digital transformation on the inside of their organizations? So, to start with the obvious, I assume this is no news to most of you, and it's very high level as well, but just to give a little context. Obviously, when we're talking about digital transformation, what we usually look at is things about how can we focus on changing consumer habits, especially habits that are changing faster. How can we develop new content, new products for these consumers? And then, of course, also the aspect of efficiency, right? So how can we look to digital products, to digitalization, to make our processes more efficient and to actually become more lean on the cost side as well, right? And this is something that most publishing companies, in at least the conversations that I've had over the last couple of years as part of Dropbox, and even before, as Nikolai was mentioning in the startup, I would say most publishing companies by now have realized that this is a change that is fundamental to the industry, and that they have to be quick and able to adapt to in a decent fashion. So what we're seeing is that many of the core systems of publishing organizations are already digital or in the process of being digitalized. So what you're looking at is media asset management solutions, CRM tools, marketing automation. So many of the core systems that the business runs, that make the business compete in a digital environment, are already either digital today or are almost, let's say, being optimized from the side of the publishers. So this is nothing new. Something that people tend to overlook, though, is that the people that actually work in these processes have changed as well. And I think this is one of the key aspects that Dropbox is focusing on in the enterprise space. We're a solution that has millions of consumers, of users around the world. So when we come to the enterprise, what we're looking at is really the people behind the processes. And these are global stats, so obviously, take it with a grain of salt for the media industry in particular. But I think two aspects that are very relevant for most publishing organizations are the trends that are around mobility and around freelance work, which is something that the media industry has known for a while. And now with devices becoming more adaptable, more mobile, more flexible, there is a big change in this, the way that people actually work to deliver their content to the publishers. And there's one other aspect that is relevant in this context, and that is mobile apps, or let's say apps that are available to workers. And this is a big number, 1.4 million apps in the App Store. But what is more interesting is how do these apps actually influence the way people work? And I think this is where we kind of come in and dive a little deeper into the actual conversation. And I want to ask a couple of questions before we go any further from here. Just to get a little introduction from your side as well, how many of you know Dropbox, have used Dropbox in the past? Okay, that's quite a few. So that's already a good start. Now, let's dive a little deeper into some of the workflows that are emerging across the industry. How many of you are using local favorite here out of Berlin, Wunderlist? Okay, it's quite a bit. And then you have the company that's coming from the other side of the pond as well, but an up-and-coming startup helping enterprises work better together, Slack. Any Slack users? Okay. Oh, that's a pretty digital audience, I would say, not surprisingly, I guess. But as you can see, there's a lot of new applications that are coming out that are not necessarily brought in by IT or by the enterprise, but that people use to make their own workflows easier and to produce better products and better solutions in a digital environment. The problem that brings about, and that is the case, I'd say, for most organizations, but especially we're seeing it in the media industry, is that it creates a divide. It creates a divide between the core solutions that are often quite extensive, that take some time to implement, but that have a big impact on the business and the processes that are running in the business altogether. And on the other side, you have the devices and the solutions that the people use, that they bring to the business, right? And this is a trend that we've seen accelerate over the last couple of years, but only now are companies really starting to look at what does it mean to them, right? How can they actually deliver in a digital world, lead in digital transformation if they don't take two sides into account? And this is where we want to come in. Right, so many of you know Dropbox, I would say, as a file sharing solution, probably as cloud storage in the most simple sense. But the truth is that Dropbox can already today do much more, but especially the vision of it is going much further, especially in the enterprise context. So what Dropbox today is able to do, and I suppose we'll focus on in some of the examples that we're delivering later as well, is being this file layer in the cloud. So a connection between the core systems of the business and the productivity tools of the people. The way this connection works is by being a file layer in the cloud, right? So what is actually being transferred between the two types of solutions is files, documents, information. And with an integration between the two, you're able to actually give them a context, which currently doesn't exist because the two systems work in silos apart from each other. Now, there's another thing that needs to be connected in the context of digital transformation. It's not only the people and their tools, but it's the people with each other. And the reason for that is because digital transformation requires ideas. That's a very broad statement. I don't think it's news to anyone, but it's important to remember, and I'm not sure if we can see this well, but I'll go through it very quickly. It's important to remember that even a company like Facebook, that is taken as being one of the leaders of the digital space altogether, is very good at reinventing itself at scale. So on the left, you'll see a couple of innovations that they have produced over the last couple of years. And on the right, you'll see the stats that they have delivered on a business perspective over the last 5 years. So whereas in 2010, they were, if you compare it relative to the overall US magazine ad industry, they had compared 15% of the market with regards to the ad revenues that they make on the Dropbox and the Facebook platform. By 2015, they were at 150%. So Facebook these days makes more money from advertising than the entire US magazine ad industry combined. And this is very strongly due to the reinventions that they have been able to produce along the way, and the way that they've been able to benefit from the platform that they have developed. And there's another reason why I'm bringing up this example, and here's where Dropbox comes back into play. This is a graph that shows collaboration within Facebook. And Facebook is a Dropbox Business customer, and they've been one since more or less the early days, because Dropbox Business is around since 2013. And by the end of the year, Facebook was implementing the solution. And what you're seeing here is little dots in a diagram on the left that signify Dropbox users, and lines that signify the connections between those, so files that are going back and forth. So within 1 year after introducing the solution, this was the outset at the beginning when we did an analysis, and that's what happened in the year after that. So they went from being a relatively connected company to having a huge collaboration network within Facebook. And this is, I believe, where Dropbox has provided some benefit to the company and is connected to being a part of digital transformation. It allows collaboration to take place freely within the people that actually bring the ideas, right, and create the content that helps publishers compete in this environment. And this is why, coming back to the idea of what Dropbox is and what we want to be, it's not just about being a file sharing platform and having very good syncing technology. It's about being a collaboration network. So today what happens is we already have 3.3 billion connections. So these connections that you saw between individual people at Facebook, this is something that happens across the world. So it's not only people in companies, it's private users, it's freelancers, anybody that's connecting via files, via information on Dropbox, that amounts to over 3 billion connections today. And that is across 500 million users and even 8 million businesses. So while these are not all Dropbox business customers, Dropbox has found its way into a lot of workflows in the business environment. Right, and now we'll take a look at a video and to show and see what one of our biggest customers in the publishing industry is doing with Dropbox. All right. So this was obviously a very short and high-level overview, but it's a good start into what we're doing now, which the next step is diving a little into the actual workflows behind it. So as you can see, the idea, and National Geographic was also one of our early customers, is really being able to connect people across the business and then be able to deliver better and deliver content better and more efficiently to the actual end consumer. And this is a graph that actually shows what is at stake and what is going on behind the scenes at National Geographic. So, obviously they're focused very much on photo and video content, right? So there's a lot of high quality content that comes into National Geographic and into the editing team from various parts across the world. And what you can see here is a so-called collaboration graph. So the collaboration network, which shows, and it's hard to see, so I'll go through it a little bit, the connections that they have internally. So National Geographic and the editing team being in the center, they're sharing to a very high extent with education. So there's a lot of contributors from universities there because the National Geographic Society is very entrenched in an education network. There's a lot of consumers, so that would be clients of National Geographic to a large extent. There's professional services, so agencies, consultants, law firms. Then there's travel and tourism, obviously one big segment that National Geographic is highly related to. And two other aspects which is maybe a bit less relevant, information technology, so that would be suppliers, right? Companies like the ones that we're seeing here that are supplying solutions for National Geographic. And lastly, government, which to be fair, I'm not really sure what they're doing with. But this goes to show, this is what National Geographic has done and what people inside the company have done with Dropbox. They have created a network that allows them to get content out more easily and get it in more easily whenever they need it, from all kinds of contributors across the world. And a short idea around one of the workflows, and the video was relatively short, it's kind of an emotional video for us at least. And in the end, it shows a simple workflow, and that's the truth, right? I'm not here to try and say Dropbox is being out a revolutionizing, incredibly complicated workflow into the system. Really, what happens is people have basic workflows that have so far been relatively difficult for them to complete, and they use Dropbox to just make it simpler for them. So the workflow here is just essentially what we've seen. External collaborators, field contractors in this sense, submitting photos and videos using the Dropbox app. The editing team receiving them and editing them within their solutions that they use for it, within the Dropbox platform, and then sending them out to the publishers. And in the end, this all happens within the Dropbox ecosystem. I mean, many of you know the interface of Dropbox. It's integrated in your file system as well. You don't really need to go out of it. You can start the tools and the programs that you need to change and to kind of make this workflow happen out of your Dropbox platform. Right. Oh. And now is the time when my colleague Cyrus will show you a little demo, will guide you through a little demo around one of the new solutions that we're bringing out in order to help people collaborate more effectively with each other.
Absolutely.
Cyrus.
Yeah, so one thing that we're working on right now is Dropbox Paper. And I think a very important piece to Dropbox and collaboration generally, and when we think about collaboration, it's two pieces. It's the content, and then the actual communication around that content. Both are equally important. This, Dropbox Paper, allows both those pieces to start coming together. It's an online web platform. There's also an iOS app, an Android app. And let's see if I can play it. What you'll see here is I'm just online typing up some notes for an article that I want to write about Dropbox Business. I can have team meeting notes, some just general formatting, bulleting, section breaks. But where it gets interesting is Dropbox's integration with different file types. I'm able to drag and drop any file type, PDF, Word doc, and it drops it directly into the paper document online. Now this is interesting, and I wrote it at the top there, the idea of a whiteboard, bringing everything together now on your projects. A project just isn't a stream of words, it's a PDF, it's a Word doc, it's a PowerPoint, whatever it is, it's the conversation around all of those documents. Those all need to happen in one place. So you can also put a to-do list at the bottom. Mention your colleagues, say, Mark, please can you take a look at this? External users type in their email address and have them actually engage and being part of this paper doc, whether or not they're actually part of your team, because Dropbox does the internal, external very, very easily, breaking that silo down also. So Dropbox Paper is a first step into ensuring that you can have a communication around all the content that you're working on as a team. Here's a little, do you want to take this one? Go ahead.
Yeah, we're moving straight into the next example, essentially, which is Bauer Media, one of our biggest customers out of Australia. So it's their Australian division. And they're giving us some insights into how they actually use Dropbox.
We relied heavily on network drives and emailing archives. That meant a lot of files were hidden away and not easily accessed.
Traditionally, organizations needed to have a lot of infrastructure, which is very costly. It's a 20th century way of thinking.
One of the primary reasons we went with Dropbox for Business was because it is nimble and quick, whereas other products that have been around for years, they're just not moving at the pace that we need. It allows people to drag and drop things that were hidden in various areas on their computer into that one desktop drive so they can share things seamlessly and in one location.
We are geographically dispersed organization, so we share content a lot. Content is the key of this business. So giving us that flexibility to share across a large area is key to our survival.
So we get lots of requests for file sharing. With Dropbox, we put the power in that person's hands and they can share with whoever they want to.
Using an email address, we can share one PDF or a whole video file. That's great for us. That, open collaboration is what it's good for and what it gives us.
Dropbox for Business provides us a really secure app that allows all of our employees to take content with them. They can just access the files they need from the web browser if they want to, or their mobile app. Usually executives are on the road and they're hard to lock down, so with Dropbox they can just open a file from any device, anywhere, look at it, approve it, and it moves the workflow process along much quicker than it did before.
Security is very important to us. It's a lot about having that fully automated workflow. We chose Dropbox because it provided seamless integration while giving us that high degree of security. It's one less thing to worry about. It frees up your time to focus on better things.
It's definitely increased productivity because people are able to access their files from anywhere all the time. It's a really innovative and forward-thinking product. It's just, leaps and bounds above the rest.
And here's another use case actually that we wanted to talk about. So this is News Corp. News Corp, one of the customers that I work very closely with out of the UK. It looks like it's a complicated slide, but what we're trying to show here is on the right-hand side, you see the different teams that are all working with Dropbox. You can see it's pricing and the legal team, creative and marketing internal, the account team internal, the client, the ad agency, both external. And there's a lot of workflows that have to happen between those four groups around Salesforce, and we'll show you what the integration with Salesforce looks like in a second, Office, Adobe, There's a lot of tools that have to go in and a lot of processes that both internal users and external users need to be a part of. And that's where Dropbox comes in. We can easily handle all four just through using Dropbox shared folders. So you can invite external people, you can put controls on to make sure that maybe at certain points, some folders, you don't want external collaborators being involved. So this is what News Corp does to help get from proposal to tracking as quickly as possible to get those ads out as quickly as possible. Here's the Salesforce integration I was mentioning. As you scroll down, you can actually see, you can put in a Dropbox for Salesforce window. I can go into my proposals folder, grab something from my desktop, drag it straight into Dropbox, and I put the other window up so you can see it. But it'll upload, and I didn't speed this up, I swear. It's gonna upload straight into Dropbox, and once it's uploaded, it automatically just shows up into your desktop. Any changes you're making on your desktop are gonna update in Salesforce. This is really great for marketing and sales teams to work together, because marketing can work out of PowerPoints and their presentations and their documents. The sales team can just live out of Salesforce. They don't need to, it's their existing use cases and tools, but they're able to work together easier because Dropbox has opened itself up in the back end and the front end, as Mark was saying earlier.
All right, thank you, Cyrus. So this is something that we've been doing for a while now. It's part of, I would say, our DNA to have these connections at scale. So there's a variety of solutions that we're connecting with already. We've seen the Salesforce integration, but there's a bunch of others. We've talked about Slack before. There's these signature tools like DocuSign, which help a great deal and are already integrated with it. So it helps you as a publisher be able to use and integrate any of these solutions if you're looking at some of these providers and integrate them with your file system, which would then be running on Dropbox. So this is something that we're already doing successfully on a global level. And something that comes in now, which is also part of the reason why we're here, is that we're also integrating with individual providers of solutions to publishing in order to bring Dropbox integrations to your systems, right? So the core systems that we've spoken about in the beginning, they're always a little customized. There are different ways in which companies use them. There's large projects that they run around with, run around these core solutions. And essentially what we're doing as well is we're beginning to partner with more and more companies that offer such customized core solutions in order to bring the strength of these integrations to core business processes. And one example that I want to briefly talk about today is an integration that we're starting together with the company Digital Collections, based out of Hamburg, so a big player in the enterprise content management scene over here in Germany. And we are working on an integration that will allow people to use the DC Content Hub, which essentially allows for rights management, text mining, picture handling, and especially also being an interface to production environments for your content, allows this to integrate with Dropbox, which will then allow the users of the tool to be able to share with external collaborators, to have a faster data import and export, and last but not least, of course, having a cloud data storage as a backup for their files. So this is something that we're starting to focus on more actively now, and we'd be very happy to talk to you about that at our stand over here at DIS. Thank you very much.
All right, does anybody have any questions? Can we get a mic over here?
Yes, hi, Andreas from Hakon Media in Sweden. We are using Dropbox Business, and it's a fantastic app. But one question, when I was thinking about moving from a server where we're using InDesign files to Dropbox, but how about the conflicts if two users open the same InDesign file, let's say?
That's a great question. Actually, I was running into, I had this very same question from a book publisher in the UK. So has anyone played with the Dropbox badge by chance? You probably haven't even noticed it. But if you open up a Word document, Excel file, PowerPoint, and Dropbox, you actually find a little button that just pops up next to that file with a little Dropbox logo. Now, from that, yeah, right on the right-hand side, from that logo, you can actually create a link, go to previous versions. One thing we didn't even mention, Dropbox saves every version of every file when you upgrade to a business account. But the other thing the badge does is if two people open the file at the same time, you actually get a notification that Mark is in the file with you at the same time. Now, that's how we notify users. There's two ways, and to give a little idea behind the product strategy, check-in, check-out. A lot of people use check-in, check-out around this. Check-in, check-out's actually really annoying when we talk to IT people. They say people forget to check back in, they're gone for 2 days, people can't access. It breaks down workflows. It makes it hard to get work done. That's why we invented the badge. That's why we created the badge. It's something on our side actually that we do. What I will say is take a look through the rest of the year in terms of other file types that we'll be adding the badge onto.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Hi, first of all, thank you for your talk. It was very nice. Alex from Ruppli in Berlin. One thing we always find very challenging is the speed of transfer to different countries. I'd like to hear your solutions when you work with other companies. How do you go around solving these problems? Or, and what is the global reach of a Dropbox?
So, yeah, very good question. Thank you very much. So essentially, most of Dropbox clients or users come out from outside of the US. So over 70% of our users are based outside of the US, and they're working with a solution. So there's, I'd say, there's a variety of reasons why Dropbox is performing the way it is, even for people that are far away from its core servers. But there's also action that we've taken recently in order to improve this performance. So one thing we've done is, for example, work with proxies in different locations across the world in order to make the data transfer and the connection faster. And another thing is that we've just announced is we'll be opening a data center here in Germany in Q3 of this year, in collaboration with Amazon, so it will be based on AWS. And obviously it will help us speed up the connection for users across Europe.
I think a good point to that too is the National Geographic video. If you think about the use case, it started because photographers in the field were, not joking, like from anywhere in Africa, were mailing USB disks back to Washington, DC. That was the use case that we've originally started to help them with. And imagining where these photographers actually are, it's very low bandwidth countries oftentimes for National Geographic. And that's actually why they chose Dropbox over, they're a full Google Apps house, but they chose Dropbox because Dropbox uniquely worked best in low bandwidth countries. And not to get into the technology behind it, but it's because of how we actually sync files. So if you want to have a longer conversation, please stop by the booth. Happy to talk about what we do on our back end to make sure that's the best possible.
I would like to ask you, when you work with large corporations, do the IT people there have security concerns, and how do you address those concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely do have security concerns, and they should, right? That is their job. Our job is to help alleviate those concerns. What I would like to say is we work with some of the biggest companies in the world, both from enterprise IT, but also in industries you wouldn't expect, energy, industrials, government, all over the world. And we've gone through numerous audits, safety reports that we under NDA are happy to share because we want to be fully transparent in terms of what we do. I'm sure in the German market you can speak to it specifically also.
Yes, I mean, of course this question becomes even more relevant in Germany, where I would say, the transition into the cloud, not even just Dropbox, but in general, is still a little behind. So these questions always come up very early in the process, and we've been able to address them because we have a very strong legacy in that as well, right? Us being a home for the data of 500 million people across the world makes our security measures and the back end behind it very, very strong and scalable. So it's, in most cases, most IT organizations, once we start talking about actual security, realize that there are sometimes higher standards in the Dropbox platform than there would be in their local data centers. So that is definitely something we can address quite transparently.
Yeah, the joke I always say is, you can hide your money in a mattress, but there's a reason you put it into a bank, because banks are specialized at protecting those kind of things. Same idea, right? We have teams and teams of security specialists who focus on Dropbox's data centers. And that really makes a big difference.
It usually helps in this discussion. People are quite open to it.
I don't think our industry is any different from any other industry in sort of having the organizations that where the IT CIOs within the organizations believe in sort of a one-stop shop. They'll license a software or software suite rather from an organization, from a software provider, and just implement it across the board. How do you deal with this, where you want to come in and say, we want to address a very specific element of your core business, but this is how it's going to integrate? Can you speak to that?
Definitely. Yeah, thank you, Nikolai, for that question. Again, this is definitely something that we're seeing quite a bit. There's obviously companies are investing into stacks, core solutions, but also stacks like Microsoft, for example, where there is a OneDrive involved, Google, where there's a Google Drive involved. But what we see is that this is the way that IT has traditionally worked in order to make things more scalable, more efficient, but it's no longer the way that organizations live. If you've looked at the presentation, all these different solutions that come in, usually, and I think in the media industry it's a very good example, because you have strong digital natives in many cases that produce content that is relevant to the business. So very often what we see is people bring in different kinds of solutions, and it's not only Dropbox. Dropbox has a couple of use cases, right, that people are aware of, but there's a variety of different tools that come into the system. So it becomes of real value because it becomes impossible to focus only on one stack. So IT organizations are more and more starting to look at what are my people actually doing and how can I consolidate and integrate between those solutions, rather than going in and saying, no, I'm going to block all that's happening. Because they realize with the environment that we're in, it becomes more and more difficult to actually do that, and it becomes detrimental to the business.
And I think it's unique also in media around large file types, videos, images, audio. As you're moving into, especially during a digital transformation, as you move into these large file types, Dropbox, you'll find uniquely performs better on larger file types. And that's why we've often found media companies to say, you know what, actually this is worth the investment, because it does make my job, A, that much easier as an IT person, because people stop yelling at me, and two, actually getting articles, whatever it is, publishing out faster because of what we do.
Anybody else has any questions for either Mark or Cyrus? All right, well, we would like to give you a round of applause, and
Thank you.